The weapon sat in the exact center of the containment field, humming with what the science team kept calling anomalous energy signatures. I called it deeply irritating. After 3 standard cycles of poking, scanning, and generally annoying this thing, we were no closer to understanding it than when we pulled it from the wreckage of that derelict station. "Commander Vex, the gravitational readings are still fluctuating," said Cora, my second in command, her 3 eyes blinking in sequence the way they always did when she was nervous. "Perhaps we should increase the field strength? And risk another overload?" I clicked my mandibles in what passed for a laugh among my species. The last time we did that, poor Thren spent 2 days in medical getting his scales regrown. No, thank you. The weapon itself was utterly unremarkable to look at. Some kind of primitive melee implement, roughly 2 meters long, with a wide blade at one end and a counterweight at the other. The humans would probably call it an axe or a halberd or some other equally barbaric name. What made it remarkable was that it weighed approximately nothing and everything simultaneously. Our instruments couldn't agree on its mass. One scanner said it was light as air, another insisted it would collapse the deck plating. A third, which I personally threw out an airlock after it sparked and died, simply displayed an error message in ancient Precursor script that translated roughly to, "Stop asking stupid questions." "Has anyone tried lifting it again?" asked Mira, our xenoarchaeologist, tentacles coiling with barely contained excitement. 17 attempts, I said, pulling up the logs on my datapad. Thren tried. You tried. I tried. We even got that Krovan mercenary from Deck 9 to try, and he can bench press a small shuttle. And the weapon did absolutely nothing. It sat there like it was welded to an invisible floor, except there is no floor in a containment field. I rubbed my carapace where a headache was forming. This thing is mocking us. I am certain of it. The observation deck had become something of a gathering spot over the past few cycles. Word had spread throughout the ship that we had found something genuinely inexplicable. And in a galaxy where faster-than-light travel was commonplace and entire planets could be terraformed in a decade, inexplicable was rare enough to draw a crowd. Currently, about 30 crew members were pressed against the viewing windows, watching our latest attempt to understand this infernal object. Someone had even started a betting pool. The odds on "it explodes and kills us all" were surprisingly favorable. "What do we know about where it came from?" I asked, not for the first time. Mira consulted her own datapad, tentacles dancing across the holographic interface. The station was Precursor origin, approximately 40,000 years old, give or take a millennium. Standard exploratory outpost, nothing fancy, except for the vault where we found this. The vault that required a DNA lock from 3 different extinct species to open? That vault, yes. Wonderful. I clicked my mandibles again. So, the Precursors, those magnificently advanced beings who seeded half the galaxy with technology we still cannot fully comprehend, decided to lock away a simple hand weapon behind enough security to make a banking guild jealous. There is also the inscription, Cora pointed out helpfully. Ah yes, the inscription, carved into the vault wall in 17 different languages, all of them dead, all of them saying essentially the same thing, "For the one who balances all things." Poetry, I muttered. Why can ancient civilizations never just write an instruction manual? Perhaps it is an instruction manual, Mira suggested. Precursor philosophy held that balance was the fundamental force of the universe, matter and antimatter, creation and entropy, light and dark. Spare me the lecture. I attended the academy same as you. A commotion near the airlock drew my attention. The crowd at the viewing window was parting, and I heard the distinctive sound of heavy boots on deck plating. Human boots. Oh, wonderful. Just what this situation needed. "Commander Vex!" The human's voice boomed across the observation deck, with that peculiar enthusiasm that made my species so uncomfortable. They were always so loud about everything. "Heard you found something interesting." The human in question was named Marcus. Just Marcus. Humans and their absurdly simple naming conventions. He worked in engineering, fixing things that broke, and occasionally breaking things that worked perfectly fine just to see what would happen. He was also, unfortunately, the only human on my ship. I say unfortunately not because Marcus was bad at his job. Quite the opposite. He was terrifyingly competent. But humans had a reputation, and that reputation was for chaos. "Marcus," I acknowledged, trying to keep the resignation out of my voice. "I thought you were 3 decks down, fixing the plasma conduits. Finished an hour ago," he grinned, showing far too many teeth. Humans were predators, and sometimes they forgot that their expressions of happiness looked distinctly threatening to species that had evolved being preyed upon. "Heard through the grapevine that you folks have been staring at a big pointy stick for 3 days. Thought I would come see what the fuss was about. It is not a stick. It is potentially a precursor artifact of immense power. Looks like a stick to me. A heavy one, judging by all this gear." He gestured at the containment field and the small army of monitoring equipment surrounding it. "What is it, ceremonial, religious, or just really good at stabbing things? We do not know. We cannot even lift it. Cannot as in too heavy, or cannot as in weird space magic. Both. Neither. The mass readings are contradictory." I pulled up the scans and showed him. "See? According to this, it should phase through normal matter. According to that one, it should create a localized singularity." Marcus studied the readings with the kind of intense focus that always made me nervous. When humans got that look, they were about to do something either brilliant or catastrophically stupid, sometimes both. "Has anyone human tried to lift it?" he asked. The observation deck went silent. Even the betting pool quieted down. "Why would that matter?" I asked slowly. "Well," Marcus scratched his chin. "Precursors were roughly humanoid, right? Bilateral symmetry, 2 arms, 2 legs, forward-facing eyes. And you said there was an inscription about balance?" "Yes, but there are hundreds of species with similar body plans. Why would humans specifically be relevant?" "Call it a hunch." He was already heading toward the airlock. "Mind if I pop in there and give it a try?" Every instinct I possessed screamed that this was a terrible idea. But I was also a scientist, and scientists are fundamentally curious creatures, even when that curiosity is likely to get them killed. "Fine," I said, "but if you destabilize the containment field and blow a hole in my ship, I am putting it on your permanent record." "Fair enough." The safety protocols required 3 separate biometric confirmations before the inner airlock would open. Marcus waited patiently while the system verified his identity, humming some human tune that sounded vaguely martial. The crowd pressed even closer to the viewing windows. I noticed the betting pool had pivoted entirely to what happens when the human touches it. The odds on something weird were holding steady at 2 to 1. The airlock cycled. Marcus stepped into the containment chamber, and immediately every sensor in the room started screaming warnings. Not errors, warnings. The difference being that errors were things going wrong with the equipment. Warnings were things going wrong with reality. "Marcus, perhaps, you should—" I started. Too late. He was already walking toward the weapon, that casual human confidence on full display. Humans were deathworlders, born on a planet that seemed specifically designed to kill them in creative ways, and they had all developed this unsettling ability to face down danger with a shrug and a joke. He reached the weapon, looked at it, looked back at us through the viewing window. "So, I just grab it?" "If you can," Cora said into the intercom. "No one else has managed." "Right. Here goes nothing." Marcus bent down, wrapped both hands around the weapon's shaft and lifted. The weapon came up smoothly, easily, like it weighed no more than a feather. Every alarm in the observation deck started blaring at once. The containment field flickered. The gravitational sensors red-lined, then zeroed out, then started showing readings that could not possibly be correct unless Marcus was somehow simultaneously increasing and decreasing the local mass of space-time. "Huh," Marcus said, examining the weapon in his hands. "Nice balance. Whoever forged this knew what they were doing." Then he frowned. "Actually, wait. This is not quite right." "Not right?" I barely managed to keep my voice level. "Marcus, you are holding an impossible object that has defied every law of physics we understand. What do you mean it is not right?" "The weight distribution is off. Here, feel this." He shifted his grip, adjusting his stance. The weapon moved in his hands like it was alive, flowing from one position to another. The head is too heavy for the shaft length, and the counterweight is in the wrong spot. Whoever used this last must have had longer arms. He walked over to the edge of the containment field, still holding the weapon casually over one shoulder. "You folks got any tools in here? I can fix this." The silence that followed was profound. 30-some species, representing the best scientific and military minds the Coalition had to offer, all staring at a human who was critiquing the ergonomics of a precursor artifact. "Fix it," I repeated flatly. "Yeah, the balance is wrong. See, a weapon like this, you need the center of mass right about here." He indicated a spot on the shaft. "Otherwise, you are fighting the momentum instead of using it. Makes for sloppy cuts and tired arms." "Marcus, that weapon is 40,000 years old." "So? Physics does not care about age. Bad balance is bad balance." Mira's tentacles were twitching with either excitement or the onset of a nervous breakdown. "Possibly both," the inscription said, "for the one who balances all things." "What if it was not philosophical? What if it was literal?" "You mean the precursors left behind a cosmic key disguised as a weapon and locked it with security that would only open for someone who could tell it needed adjustment?" I could hear the hysteria creeping into my voice. "That is the most absurd thing I have heard all cycle." "And yet," Cora pointed at the human, still standing there with the impossible weapon, "there he is." Marcus had found a maintenance kit in the corner of the containment chamber and was already disassembling the weapon. The head came off with a soft click. The counterweight unscrewed smoothly. He was examining the internal mechanisms with that focused expression again, occasionally making small adjustments with tools that were definitely not designed for precision archaeological work. "Marcus," I said carefully, "what are you doing?" "Rebalancing the head. Whoever used this before must have been about 15 centimeters taller than me and had arms like a Crovan. Once I shift this weight forward and adjust the grip, it should feel much better. Should feel better." "You are modifying a precursor artifact based on how it should feel." "Well, yeah, that is what the inscription said, right?" He looked up, grinning that predator grin again. "Balance all things. I am balancing the weapon. Makes sense, to me." It made no sense. It made absolutely no sense whatsoever. And yet, as Marcus worked, something was happening to the weapon. The earlier energy readings had been chaotic, fluctuating wildly. Now they were stabilizing, settling into a steady rhythm that matched the human's heartbeat. No, that could not be right. I checked the sensors again. The weapon was definitely synchronizing with Marcus's biological rhythms. Heart rate, breathing, even his neural patterns. The artifact was bonding with him. "Mira," I said quietly, "tell me the precursors did not leave behind technology that bonds with specific users." "I cannot tell you that because they absolutely did. It was one of their key design philosophies, tools that adapted to their wielders." Her voice was shaking slightly. "But those systems required psychic harmonics that most modern species lack. The genetic drift over 40,000 years should have made it impossible for anyone to activate them. Most species, yes." We both turned to look at the human, still happily tinkering with his new toy, completely oblivious to the fact that he had just accomplished something that should have been biologically impossible. "So what you are telling me," I said slowly, "is that humans, those loud, chaotic, disaster-prone death worlders who only achieved spaceflight 500 years ago, are somehow compatible with precursor technology that predates their entire civilization by orders of magnitude. That does appear to be what the data suggests. Yes, I hate this." "I do too, Commander." Marcus finished his adjustments and reassembled the weapon with practiced efficiency. He stood, gave it a few experimental swings, and nodded with satisfaction. "There we go, much better, perfect balance now." He turned to face us, still holding the weapon. "So what do you want me to do with it?" Before I could answer, every light in the containment chamber turned blue. A holographic interface materialized in the air around Marcus, covered in Precursor script. And then, in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, the weapon spoke. "Recognized. Air protocol initiated. Welcome, Inheritor." Marcus blinked. Hi?" "You have got to be kidding me," I muttered. The holographic interface expanded, filling the entire chamber with cascading lines of ancient text. Mira was frantically trying to translate, her tentacles moving so fast they were practically a blur across her datapad. "It is a training protocol," she said, her voice climbing several octaves. "The weapon is not a weapon. It is a key. A test. The precursors left behind hundreds of caches throughout the galaxy, hidden and sealed, waiting for their heirs to find them." "And let me guess," I said, "the heir is whoever can balance the weapon. The heir is whoever can balance all things." Combat, ethics, power, restraint. Mira looked up from her translation. The Precursors were not looking for warriors, they were looking for judges. Marcus was still standing there, looking slightly uncomfortable with the glowing text swirling around him. So, quick question. When you say judge, do you mean like a legal judge, or more like a judge of all creation situation? Because I am really just an engineer. According to this, you are now both, Mira said. The weapon has accepted you. You have access to every Precursor cache, vault, and repository in the galaxy, centuries worth of lost technology and knowledge. And all you had to do, I added, was point out that the balance was slightly off. Yeah, about that. Marcus hefted the weapon again. I still think the grip could use some padding. Do you guys have any ergonomic foam in stores? The laughter started somewhere in the back of my throat and would not stop. Here we were, representing dozens of advanced civilizations, and the Precursors had left their ultimate legacy to the one species in the galaxy that would critique the ergonomics of a cosmic artifact. Humans, I said, when I finally caught my breath. Of course it would be humans. Is that a yes on the foam? Marcus asked hopefully. The betting pool, I later learned, paid out handsomely to the 3 crew members who had bet on something completely inexplicable that somehow makes perfect sense in retrospect. As for what happened next, well, that is a story for another time, because as it turned out, the weapon was not the only Precursor artifact waiting for someone to point out its flaws. And Marcus, being Marcus, was about to have a very busy few months. But first, he needed to fill out approximately 7,000 forms, because even cosmic inheritance has paperwork. And that, as they say, was just the beginning. The paperwork took 3 weeks, 3 excruciating weeks of watching Marcus try to explain to coalition bureaucrats that, yes, he had been chosen by an ancient super-civilization, and no, he could not demonstrate this by setting things on fire or teleporting. The weapon does not do tricks, he kept saying. It is a key. Keys open doors. They do not juggle. The bureaucrats were not impressed. I spent those 3 weeks having very uncomfortable conversations with Coalition Command. Conversations that mostly involved them yelling questions at me and me yelling back that I did not have answers. Why had the human been chosen? No idea. What were the Precursors planning? Dead for 40 millennia. Cannot ask them. Could we remove the weapon from Marcus and give it to someone more qualified? That last one had been tested. Extensively. The moment Marcus set the weapon down, it became immovable again. He was the only person in the entire galaxy who could lift it. Several high-ranking officials suggested taking Marcus into custody for study. I politely reminded them that kidnapping a coalition citizen was illegal, and also that humans had a treaty which explicitly stated that messing with their people was a spectacularly bad idea. Humanity was small, only 40 colonized systems, maybe 12 billion people total. But they had a reputation. They had fought a 3-year war against the Korvax Dominion and won through sheer stubborn refusal to surrender. They had turned marginal worlds into thriving colonies through determination and duct tape. And most importantly, they held grudges. Command backed off, reluctantly. Now we were standing in the cargo bay, preparing to visit the first Precursor cache. The weapon, which Marcus had named Steve for reasons he refused to explain, was strapped to his back. He had added padding to the grip. Also, a cup holder. I had stopped questioning his modifications. Coordinates locked, Cora announced from the bridge. The cache is located on an uninhabited moon in the outer reaches. No registered claims, no active settlements. Which means someone will probably try to claim it the moment we arrive, I muttered. News of this situation has leaked. Indeed it had. Every treasure hunter, salvage crew, and opportunistic warlord in 3 sectors was now racing toward known Precursor sites. The fact that only Marcus could actually access them had not dampened enthusiasm. If anything, it had increased interest. Several parties had already made offers to buy Steve. One particularly bold group had offered to buy Marcus himself. That contract now served as a coaster in my office. "Transport ready, Commander," said Pilot Jen, our Tyrillian navigator. Her compound eyes glittered with barely contained excitement. "Atmospheric entry should be smooth. Probably." "Probably? The moon has unusual magnetic fields and gravitational eddies, and what sensors are calling aggressive geology." "Aggressive geology. The rocks are apparently very hostile," Marcus laughed. Sounds like home. Earth had volcanoes, earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, and animals that could kill you by existing nearby. Hostile rocks are nothing. Yes, but you people are insane, I pointed out. The rest of us prefer our planets to not actively attempt murder. Where is the fun in that? The transport shook as we entered atmosphere, then shook harder, then started making sounds that transports should definitely not make. Jen swore in 3 languages simultaneously, wrestling with the controls. Told you! Aggressive geology. The magnetic fields are redirecting our thrusters. Can you compensate? Working on it. Marcus, hold on to something. The human was already strapped into his crash seat, looking utterly relaxed. This is fine. One time I rode a shuttle through a solar flare. This is nothing. Why would you ride a shuttle through a solar flare? I demanded. Bet. You people bet on everything. Only the interesting things. The transport lurched sideways, dropped 30 meters, then stabilized. Jen whooped triumphantly. Got it. Landing in 2 minutes. The moon's surface was exactly as welcoming as advertised. Grey stone, no atmosphere, and gravity that fluctuated between crushing and non-existent depending on where you stood. Our suits compensated, but walking still felt like trudging through syrup one moment and floating the next. Charming place, Marcus commented, scanning the horizon. Real fixer-upper potential. The Precursors built a cache here because nobody would ever want to visit, Mira said, consulting her scanner. Strategic isolation. Very clever. Or they just liked horrible real estate. People are weird about that. The cache entrance was hidden inside a crater, disguised as natural rock formation, only visible because Steve started vibrating the moment we got close. A soft hum that built to a steady pulse, like a heartbeat. It knows we are here, Marcus said. Or it knows Steve is here. Same thing, I guess. The rock face shimmered and dissolved, revealing a doorway carved with intricate patterns. More Precursor script, this time in only 1 language. Mira translated, immediately. Enter and prove worthy. Balance the scales. Judge with wisdom. More poetry, I sighed. Fantastic. Marcus approached the doorway. The moment he crossed the threshold, lights activated throughout the structure. Soft blue illumination that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The interior was vast, stretching far deeper than the crater should allow. Precursor spatial engineering, folding space like paper to fit impossibilities into small containers. Okay, this is actually pretty cool, Marcus admitted. The main chamber held pedestals, dozens of them, arranged in concentric circles. Each pedestal displayed an object. Some looked like tools, others resembled weapons. A few were simply geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly. And at the center, floating in a column of light, was a sphere covered in moving symbols. Data core, Mira breathed. Oh, ancestors, that is a Precursor data core. Do you know what this means? Intact records, history, science, everything they knew. How do we access it? I asked. We do not. He does. She pointed at Marcus. The air, that is the entire point. Marcus walked toward the sphere, Steve still humming contentedly on his back. The pedestals lit up as he passed them, objects glowing in sequence like a path of breadcrumbs. It is responding to him, Cora observed. The entire facility is waking up. Yeah, I can feel that. Marcus stopped in front of the sphere. It is like it is asking me questions. Not out loud, just sort of probing, checking if I am really supposed to be here. And apparently I pass. It is opening up now. The sphere split apart, segments folding outward in impossibly complex patterns. Light spilled out, coalescing into holographic displays. Text, images, 3-dimensional models of star systems and technologies I could not begin to understand. Marcus stood there, eyes moving rapidly as he absorbed information pouring directly into his brain. His expression shifted, from curious to shocked to deeply concerned in the span of seconds. Oh, he said quietly. Oh no. What? What is it? The Precursors. They did not disappear. They left. On purpose. Marcus turned to face us, and his expression was haunted. They saw something coming. Something that scared them so badly they abandoned everything and fled to another galaxy entirely. The chamber went silent except for the hum of ancient technology. What could frighten the Precursors? Mira asked. They were the most advanced civilization in galactic history. That is the problem, They were not. Marcus gestured at the holographic data. According to this, they were just the latest in a cycle. Every 50,000 years, civilizations rise, advance, hit a certain threshold of development, and then something wipes them out. The Precursors figured out the pattern. They realized they were next, so they ran. Run from what? They called it the equation, not a being, not an empire. Something fundamental, like physics, but wrong. It emerges when civilizations develop certain technologies, artificial intelligence beyond a specific complexity, reality manipulation, dimensional bridging. Cross those thresholds, and the equation notices you. That is insane, I said. Physics cannot be malicious. Can it not? We live in a universe with faster-than-light travel that should not exist. We manipulate gravity in ways that break conservation laws. The Precursors theorized that reality has immune responses, antibodies, ways of correcting problems. Marcus looked back at the data. We are problems, all of us. Anything that gets too smart, too powerful, too capable of changing fundamental laws. Cora clicked her beak nervously. So what happened to the Precursors? They left these caches as warnings. And as tools. The weapons, the technology, all of it designed to help the next civilizations either hide from the equation or fight it. He paused. They were not optimistic about the fighting option. Wait. I felt cold despite my suit's temperature regulation. Are you saying we are approaching the threshold, that the equation is coming for us? According to their calculations? We crossed the threshold about 50 years ago. We should have been wiped out already. Marcus frowned at the data. But we are still here, which means either their math was wrong, or something has changed. Or the equation is already here and we have not noticed, Mira said softly. That thought hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Marcus spent another hour interfacing with the data core, downloading information that would take decades to fully analyze. The cache contained blueprints for technologies that could revolutionize coalition science, shields that could withstand stellar detonations, engines that folded space without exotic matter, medical advances that could extend lifespans by centuries, and weapons, so many weapons, each designed to fight enemies that operated on principles we barely understood. The Precursors were terrified, Marcus said as we prepared to leave. Everything here screams desperation. They threw together whatever they could and hoped their successors would be smarter. So what do? I asked. We prepare, we research. We figure out if the threat is real or if the Precursors were paranoid. He adjusted Steve on his back, and we checked the other caches. There are coordinates here for 73 more sites. 73, I repeated. You want to visit 73 ancient alien installations scattered across hostile space? Want? No. Need to? Absolutely, Marcus grinned, but there was no humor in it now. Because if the Precursors were right, we are living on borrowed time, and I just got made responsible for whatever comes next. You are one human, an engineer who fixes plasma conduits. Yeah, well, apparently, I also inherited the job of preventing galactic extinction. Really wish Steve had come with an instruction manual. The journey back to the ship was quiet, each of us lost in our own thoughts about cycles and equations and civilizations that vanished into nothing. The galaxy suddenly felt smaller, more fragile. When we reached orbit, Communications Officer Trell was waiting with news. Commander, we have a problem. Multiple ships have arrived in system. Mercenary groups, corporate security, even a Korvax battlecruiser. They are demanding access to the cache. Of course they are. I rubbed my carapace where the headache had taken up permanent residence. What are they offering this time? Money, technology, political favors. One group is threatening military action if we do not share the Precursor data, Marcus snorted. Tell them the data says we are all probably doomed, so their threats are adorable but ultimately pointless. I cannot tell them that. Why not? It is true, because it will cause mass panic, as opposed to the calm, rational behavior they are showing now. He gestured at the view screen showing 36 ships jockeying for position around our vessel. These people are already panicking. They just do not know why yet. He had a point. The news of Precursor caches had spread faster than a reactor breach. Everyone wanted access. Everyone wanted an advantage. The fragile peace that held the coalition together was straining under the weight of ancient promises. We need to make a statement, Cora said. Take control of the narrative before it spirals further. Agreed. I turned to Marcus. You are the heir. They will listen to you. Tell them something that calms this situation down. Oh, sure, no pressure. He thought for a moment. How about the truth? Or at least part of it. Tell them the caches exist. Tell them they contain warnings and tools. Tell them I am working to access and distribute the information fairly. They will not believe you. Probably not. But at least I will be honest about it. He shrugged. Look, I fix things. Broken machines, broken systems, broken situations. This whole mess? It is broken. The Precursors left us a bunch of dangerous toys and no instructions. People are scared. They are grabbing at anything that might give them security. So, how do we fix it? We do what the Precursors should have done. We share the information. We work together. We stop treating knowledge like a weapon and start treating it like what it actually is, which is a responsibility. Marcus patted Steve. This thing chose me because I pointed out its balance was wrong. Maybe that is the whole test. Not strength, not intelligence. Just the willingness to admit when something is broken and try to fix it properly. I looked at this human, this impossible, frustrating, brilliant human who had stumbled into cosmic significance by accident and was now proposing we solve an ancient apocalypse through teamwork and honesty. You really are insane, I said. Yeah, probably. But I am also right. He moved toward communications. Trell, open a channel, all frequencies. Let everyone hear this. Are you certain? Nope. Do it anyway. The channel opened. Marcus took a breath and began speaking. This is Marcus Webb, engineer aboard the Coalition vessel Nomad. 3 weeks ago I picked up a Precursor artifact. Since then, everyone has been asking what I found. So here it is. The Precursors left behind warnings. They discovered something they could not fight. They ran. They left us tools to either run to, or maybe stand and face what is coming. I do not know which choice is right, but I know we are not going to figure it out by fighting each other over scraps. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I am going to visit every cache I can access. I am going to collect the data and share it with everyone. Scientists, governments, anyone who wants to help. Because this is not about me being special. It is about all of us being in danger and needing to work together. The Precursors failed alone. Let us try not being idiots about it. Silence filled the comm channel. Then someone laughed. Then someone else. Within minutes the tension had broken. Ships were standing down, opening diplomatic channels, offering assistance instead of threats. Did you just solve an interstellar crisis by calling everyone idiots? I asked. Seemed like the thing to do. Marcus grinned. Plus, it is true. We are all idiots. Might as well be honest about it. The weeks that followed were chaos. Organized chaos, but chaos nonetheless. Research teams were formed. Data was shared. The cache information was distributed throughout the coalition, with safeguards in place to prevent any single group from monopolizing the technology. And Marcus continued visiting sites. Each cache revealed more pieces of the puzzle. The equation was real. It had destroyed dozens of civilizations before the Precursors. But it was also not infallible. It could be delayed, maybe even stopped. The key, according to Precursor research, was balance. Not technological stagnation, not abandoning progress, but measured advancement. Growing smarter without growing reckless. Developing power while maintaining wisdom. They were trying to teach us, Marcus said one night as we reviewed data from the latest cache. All these warnings and weapons. They were not giving up on the next generation. They were trying to give us what they never had, time to prepare. Do you think we can do it? Survive what they could not? Honestly, no idea. He leaned back in his chair, Steve propped against the wall nearby. But I am an engineer. We do not give up just because something looks impossible. We break it down into smaller problems and solve those one at a time. And if the equation arrives before we are ready, then at least we tried. And we tried together. That has to count for something. 6 months later, standing on the bridge of the Nomad as we approached the final cache, I reflected on how much had changed. The coalition was stronger. Research had advanced by decades. And somehow, against all probability, We had not torn ourselves apart fighting over ancient scraps, all because one human had pointed out that a weapon was slightly unbalanced. The universe, I decided, had a deeply strange sense of humor. Final cache coming up, Cora announced. Sensors show it is larger than all the others combined. Of course it is, Marcus said cheerfully. Why would this be simple? The cache was built inside a hollowed asteroid, massive enough to have its own gravity. As we approached, Steve began vibrating so intensely that Marcus had to hold it with both hands. Something big in there, he said. Really big. Steve is practically singing. The entrance opened without prompting, revealing corridors that stretched for kilometers. At the heart of the facility was a chamber containing a single object. Another weapon, twin to Steve, perfectly balanced, waiting. And floating above it, a final message from the Precursors. To whoever finds this, we failed, we ran. We were not strong enough or wise enough or brave enough to face what was coming. But perhaps you will be. We leave you our knowledge, our tools, our hopes. May you succeed where we could not. May you balance all things and judge wisely. May you survive. Marcus reached for the second weapon. It lifted easily, humming in harmony with Steve. 2 weapons, he said quietly. 1 for each hand. Balance. What does it mean? Mira asked. It means they believed in us. The Precursors. They failed, but they thought we might not. He looked at the weapons, then at us. It means we have work to do. And so the story continues. The equation is still out there, lurking in the mathematical foundations of reality. But now we know it is coming. We are preparing. We are working together. And we have Marcus, the human who inherited the galaxy by pointing out that something was slightly wrong and offering to fix it. Still unbalanced, he would say, but getting better,